pick up their phone or tablet or Twitter and read the scores and news and sports. Lifting a cinder block isn't as easy. Cinder Block Sports with your host, John O'Donnell, brings you the unique interviews, a deeper dive into sports, and a look at why and what's next in the sports world. Follow the show on Twitter at Cinder Sports or on Facebook at Cinder Block Sports. Now, from the Dream Big Studios, your host, John O'Donnell.
Hello and welcome to Cinder Block Sports, and joining us here from the Dream Big Studios in Akron, Ohio, we are on Twitter at Cinder Sports. We are on email at cinderblocksports@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook at Cinder Block Sports. Thank you so much for joining us today. And please do me a favor, give me a like, give me a mention, give me a review, wherever you find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, whatever. Thanks again for listening. We are getting close to what I think is the biggest time of the sports year. Football on the field may be over. Well, let's see if the AAF can impact that. But football in the news. The NFL is huge. Basketball, both in college and in the NBA, are nearing what I think is the preseason. And we're about to get mad in March. And we're about to have playoff basketball, which to me is the real NBA season. And that season will not include one LeBron James. All of that, baseball is actually going to start playing meaningful games. And with baseball around the corner, my guest today will be baseball historian Scott Longert. Scott has written a number of great books on the history of the Cleveland Indians, and his newest book, Bad Boys, Bad Times, is a chronicle of the 1937 through 1941 Cleveland Indians. But he is not just a historian. He knows the Cleveland Indians' current day. We talked a lot about current day baseball, but his book has just hit newsstands, bookstores, and Amazon. We're going to talk to him about the book. We're going to cover some great Indians history, including how did the Indians illegally acquire one Bob Feller, and who tried to start fires on a team train on its way to Cleveland. So a lot of Indians to get to. I'm also going to give you my take on how the steroid-era players belong in the Hall of Fame, and I've switched on this back and forth. Also on why baseball is so good at creating those memories, those experiences that create true fans, and why baseball's unique connection to its history and American history is what makes it great, while simultaneously threatening its future. So there's so much to get to. Let's start with some of the recent news stories and my opinion on them. First, Antonio Brown. The saga has ended. Well, so far as the Pittsburgh saga has ended. Antonio Brown is the latest diva wide receiver who didn't make a lick of difference in his team winning a championship to whine and complain and get his way and work his way out of Pittsburgh. To be clear, I think of Pittsburgh as one of those legendary, historic, and really bedrock sports organizations, not just in the NFL, but in sports. But this one has shaken it to its core. And just looking at what the Steelers kept saying, from the moment this started, we heard two things. One, we are not going to trade Antonio Brown to the AFC. And two, we are going to trade him for no less than a first-round pick. So, of course, Antonio Brown was shipped to the Oakland Raiders for a third and fifth round pick. Now, I know the Raiders' geography can be confusing. They've been Oakland, then LA, then Oakland, then Constantinople, then Istanbul, now back to Los Angeles, before they head to Las Vegas next year. Maybe. But one thing has been consistent. They play in the AFC, the American Football Conference. They always have. Okay, that's fail number one. But at least they got a first... No, they did not. They did not get a first-round draft pick. They got a third and a fifth-round draft pick. And why? Because Antonio Brown crushed the Steelers' chances of getting top value, arguably for getting fair value, for him. I understand the cons of acquiring Antonio Brown. He's 31. He has demanded a huge contract, which he got, or will get, because we're in the legal tampering phase of the NFL player acquisition season. And look, I also understand that historically, high-paid, diva wide receivers, no matter how good they are, don't generally help win championships. Looking at you, Terrell Owens. Looking at you, Chad85. That is not Ocho Cinco. And also looking at you, Odell Beckham Jr. For now. But Antonio Brown has acted like his own little private poison pill to the making a deal that is a trade for him since this started. Most recently, he, in essence, vetoed a trade to the Buffalo Bills because he didn't want to play there. And look, I'm glad he didn't make it here. And by here I mean Buffalo. I'm a fan. I am shocked that the Bills entertained the idea of Antonio Brown. They are all about culture in this recent rebuild, and Antonio Brown is as good for culture as a pair of ice skates are in the desert. And look, I am sure that other places wanted Antonio Brown, and Antonio Brown said, no, I don't want to play there. He is a risk to destroy any locker room he walks into. He is clearly more concerned about the me and team than the team in winning. As a result, he handcuffed the Steelers, and they did what they could. And overall, I think both sides did okay. But I think the Steelers, it's all about timing. I think the Steelers had to make this deal, and because they had to make this deal, you look at it a little different. The Oakland Raiders, on the other hand, they held tight. I think they said 3rd and 5th round pick was as high as we're going to go, and the Steelers finally came down to them. Overall, I think the Steelers' ask was a little high, but Antonio Brown did them absolutely no favors, and I think they could have gotten more if he wasn't so Antonio Brown about the whole damn thing. So where does this leave both teams? The Steelers will take a big dead cap hit this year, which restricts their options. For those of you who are not cap specialists or don't care what dead cap means, it basically means that they've accelerated the amount of money they have to realize against the salary cap this year. Fortunately, with these draft picks, they can add some young talent. That talent will be cheap, and the Steelers tend to draft well. They picked Antonio Brown in the 6th round. So who knows? That would be quite the win for the Rooney family if they could pick somebody as good or even close to as good as the diva that just left Heinz Field. Now, I do want to digress just a second here because I remember Antonio Brown as a rookie being very respectful of Mike Tomlin. I remember a preseason game, an interview afterwards where he referred to Tomlin as Sir, referred to the Rooney family as legends, and really was very reverent to Ben Roethlisberger as well. So his personality, I'm sure, hasn't changed. I'm sure that's how he was or how he's always been. But he certainly had more respect in his game before recent times. So he's a diva now. He probably was always partially a diva, but certainly has come more to the forefront in the last year or two. So back to the Steelers. They are getting very young around a very old quarterback, and that's a problem. Success in this league seems to be dictated by youth at quarterback, meaning a younger contract, a less expensive contract, with some more talent around him. That's not what they are. Now, they did re-sign Pouncey, their center, so Big Ben may survive the season, but it will be a tough fight to the top of the AFC mountain, a spot they have held for a pretty long time, at least competed for a pretty long time. Yes, I'm looking at you, Patriots. You continue to be the best in the AFC and the NFL. But look, in the AFC North, the Steelers have a chance. The Ravens are good, but they're limited on offense, and every year you stay limited on offense, defenses have a chance to catch up and prevent you from being successful. The Bengals are terrible, which of course means they'll probably make the playoffs. I'm kidding. But everyone's pick of the litter, the Cleveland Browns, they're still young. They still have multiple holes to fill on defense, and they will have to prove that they can grow from a sub-500 team, that's right, sub-500 team, to a division winner or even a division contender. Okay, on to the Raiders. I have to think Kyler Murray is no longer on the table as an option. Even Chucky Mr. John Gruden doesn't want that flaming bag of dog poo on his front porch. No, I think Derek Carr will get a chance with a legit number one wide receiver. And the Raiders have a lot of cap space, and they have 3 first-round picks. So they could still make many moves in the draft, and they could still re-sign, Le'Veon Bell, anybody? Look, if they were in the AFC North, they would be a contender, and therefore a contender to make the playoffs. But they're not. They have the pleasure of being in the AFC West, and there are 2 really good quarterbacks. Phillip Rivers, who everyone signs off as dead every year, and every year he comes back and puts up ridiculous numbers on a good team. And Pat Mahomes, leader of the Kansas City Chiefs, who are retooling and are still going to be really, really, really good. Look, it is a tough road because the whole AFC is a tough road. The AFC is loaded. So if you aren't competing in your division, then you're competing for a playoff spot, a wild card. And the Raiders are going to be on the bottom half of those teams competing for them. But I think the Raiders will improve. I mentioned Le'Veon Bell. I think him and Antonio Brown are good friends. And I think signing him with their cap space, and I think they have like $60 million in cap space before giving about 10 or 12 to Antonio Brown this year. They've got room for him, and he would make a huge adjustment. But again, I think they're fighting for a playoff spot. They're not in the lead dog spot because they got a long way to go. And again, the Steelers are the same way. They're fighting for a playoff spot, although maybe a little more well-positioned with Big Ben and that team and franchise's history. Okay, next on the block, history. LeBron James passed Michael Jordan for 5th in all-time scoring. I am on the record for saying that LeBron James is the best basketball player I've ever seen play basketball. Moreover, I think LeBron James is the most accomplished NBA player ever. And it's not just the on-the-court stuff. He changed the NBA landscape. He is the reason that player empowerment is so high. And I understand the cons of this, and I understand that there are actual discussions that can be had. But he's the reason. So he has had a huge impact on the NBA. He is overly accomplished. And while you have to say Michael Jordan's 6 for 6 is more impressive than LeBron's 3 for 9, it's not a whitewash. There's an argument to be had. But as a skilled basketball player, give me LeBron James every day. And look, scoring the basketball is part of being a basketball player, but it's not the whole package. Michael Jordan's biggest moments and his career timeline are defined by what? His scoring. No, John Paxson, that one pass doesn't count, except to illustrate that it, like rebounding and defensive stats and other facets of Michael's game, were a smaller part of what made him. Let's look at how he came into, evolved, and left the NBA, shall we? At least in terms of the man. His shot against Craig Elo and the Cavs started the Jordan legacy as a killer, the man in the clutch, the guy who could do anything. His reverse layup against 6 Lakers players and half of the LAPD in the finals, that was a testament on how he could score anytime, anyway, and float in the air like a pixie. His final shot, the last moment of his career, the 6th of 6, following the push-off against Byron Russell, drove Karl Malone to the brink of actual human emotion, almost. All of these moments were microcosms that define what Michael Jordan is. The scoring. Of course, he did more, and he did a lot more, but historically he didn't. Comparing him to LeBron, he falls short on the other categories. And that's why, yes, it took LeBron a lot longer to reach Michael's scoring mark. But he is the only player in NBA history to be in the top 10 all time in assists. By the time he's done, he'll be in the top 2 or 3. And Kareem, he's looking at you.